bridge collapsed. The mountain road washed out. All the signs are obscured by fog. Your only directions are detours. Eventually it dawns on you. Sometimes you need to get lost to discover where you're supposed to be. Welcome to Merlin's Barn.
Hello, and welcome again to Merlin's Barn, broadcasting to you from Fort Blanket, south of the Yukon. That was me not trying to screw up the intro. I got through it, yay. And tonight, you've got with us me, obviously, Merlin.
Got T. Can I give the alliteration of the day?
T has an alliteration of the day that they are quite proud of. Go for it.
Very proud of this one. Bountiful, bounding, baby black bears.
And there's a possibility that if you hang on past the closing of the show, that there may be a little bit added in there that explains a lot more of that, because we tend to very often do a test record before we actually start recording, and we got into black bears and things like that.
Bountiful, bounding, baby black bears is a very lovely image in my brain space.
I don't know how you said that fast twice, honestly.
Yeah, twice. That's the impressive part. I've already lost the order.
We've also sucked our studio audience,
Nicole,
into it as well. And
as I've already hinted at, Matt is also here tonight.
yeah, Matt is also here tonight.
in third person.
Yes.
It feels like it sometimes. So the fun part is, although Merlin said you may hear more about the black bears in the epilogue, it may be the epilogue of a different episode.
Now, we tend to usually get them stuck onto these episodes. So,
Okay.
yeah, it tends to match them, as long as we don't call it Merlin singing.
In which case it does not get published at all.
Yes, because nobody wants to hear me sing. I'm fine with that. I don't want to hear me sing. I think I'm tone deaf, quite possibly.
Sometimes you sing in the car and it's quite nice.
I appreciate that, and I think you're just saying that to make me feel better about myself. But I love you.
Actually really...
Okay.
In the car.
This is very...
That's very topical for tonight's episode, actually.
Yes. So tonight we are doing, well, the working title right now, and it could change by the time you see the episode, is The House of Cards That Was Almost a Car. And we're going to sort of round robin this one like some of the deep dives. We try to cover stories that most people never, or at least rarely, encounter. The quirky, the odd, the amazing, but things that you generally wouldn't hear of. Like, I'll walk around at work and just go, "Hey, have you ever heard of Mike the Headless Chicken?" And they'll look at me like chicken without a head. And I'll go, "Oh, cool, you haven't heard of that. Nobody's heard of this." Okay. Unfortunately, that one would only be a 10-minute episode, but we might find things to add to make that one longer sometime.
Thanks for a fascinating 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's a great 10 minutes. We might make that like a little blurb at some point, just sort of put it in.
name
Show
Mike?
history episode.
Mike the Headless Chicken?
Why was his name Mike?
Well, that could be a whole
Save
story in
this for that
itself.
episode.
There we
To
go.
get to the other side of the street.
That doesn't fit, but okay, we'll go with it.
What's the
We
chicken
have more
joke? What do
pressing
you want?
matters.
Okay. Yeah, the quirky, the odd, the amazing but unheard, and a lot of the why would anybody do that type stories. And on the occasion, the complete train wreck. The story where you can't help but be sucked in, and the twists, turns, rides, and roller coaster leaves you wondering what just hit you. Tonight we're on a train wreck. This is just one. In the 1980s, there was a movie called Tucker, about Preston Tucker and this car he tried to build. And it was the story of his trying to fight the big manufacturers in Detroit and how he fought to produce an innovative and safer car. Though, honestly, he was quite possibly a scam artist. My grandfather certainly thought so and had whole rants about Tucker. Tucker and a couple other car companies made things hard for everybody else. The other ones were like Davis and Playboy, and they'll come up again later. This is not Tucker's story. It's a story that, honestly, I think would probably make a better movie. And it's one that even car people, I don't know of anybody who's actually heard this story. And just like the man in the polka dot house, who had heard of that. So, first off, how did we find out about this story that nobody knew about? I first touched the tip of the iceberg of this in 2011 when a friend of mine, Christian Sturgis of Sturgis Antiques, got a hold of me. And Sturgis Antiques, and Christian we will have on here for an interview at some point because he deals in all sorts of interesting oddities from musical souvenirs to rare books to I don't know. You'd have to go to his site, which I can't think of offhand. Just search Christian or Sturgis Antiques, and you'll find the cool stuff.
That's where you got the Bowie magazine from, right?
Yeah, that's where I got the Bowie
Yeah.
magazine for you for your birthday.
Yeah.
And this stuff sort of finds him. And so he called me up because he had this, basically this company press release from 1946, and for a little company called Bobby Car. And he says to me, he says, could you come down and take a look at this? Because I've never heard of this and I don't know what to do with it. And I go down and we're looking at this wonderful selection of photographs of prototype cars and then drawings of future cars they want to make. And then what is this, mimeographed? It's sort of the purple printed.
I believe that is, yeah.
Yeah. Then a
Let's go to him when we need
mimeographed,
him.
like,
Tell us exactly what it is.
yeah, a mimeographed company prospectus, which goes through all the details of the car, who's like, let me pull it up here because we've got it sitting right here. So like who's actually in charge of the company at the time. We have S.A. Williams, who you'll find out about. This does have George Keller involved. Lee Field, who you will also hear about. And then some other people like Carter, Mr. Howard, Mr. Randall, not our friend Rick, and some other folks that whose names I have not run into in researching this.
But not knowing that was a purple type of like specific ink and not like typical like black ink, that also makes a little more sense for the way it's fading.
Yeah.
Just 'cause
It's
totally
an old,
different ink.
It's an old mimeograph. So I ended up buying it from Christian because he didn't know what to do with it, and honestly, we didn't even know what it was worth, so I think I gave him $75 for it. And then started doing research, and ended up delving into finding the only information available was like in old car magazines from the 60s and 70s, finding little notes online here and there. And it's always something I did a couple articles on my Hanson Mechanical blog, but it's always something I've wanted to come back to. And I realized as I was looking through it a few months ago, it's just like there's interesting major characters in this. There's a roller coaster ride of disaster and bad decisions, and hopefully you'll enjoy it and find it interesting. And if not, I enjoyed writing it, and we're going to enjoy going through it for you, and you can send me hate mail afterwards, okay?
Y'all better like it. He put a lot of time into this. I'll fight you.
So let's see. This is this is the story of an engineer, a scam artist, a painfully honest salesman, and a genius entrepreneur, and how they tried to build a car.
We begin in San Diego, 1945, the end of World War II. World War II saw America flex its industrial might, with factories churning out ammunition, ships, planes, trucks, jeeps. You get the picture. But the end of the war was bad business. As the war ended, the orders stopped coming in, and many people saw their jobs ending too. One of these people was John Leanfield, our engineer. Leanfield worked at Convair, otherwise known as Constellated Vultee Aircraft. Convair built things like the Convair built things like the B-24 bomber and the PBY Catalina seaplane. Look them up. They're both really impressive workhorses from World War II. Before the war, Linfield was an engineer at Chrysler. Layfield saw the writing on the wall and decided he wanted to go back into the automotive industry. Layfield and some friends designed a small car with a rear-mounted 25 HP engine. For car people, that sounds like a lot like a VW Beetle. The car weighed about 600 pounds and was supposed to be a grocery getter around town type of vehicle. Leafield and friends predicted, as many others would, that there would be a huge demand for cars after the war and not much supply. There were other companies who thought this too, many concentrating on designing small, inexpensive cars. With an initial design nicknamed the Iron Monster, they needed cash for further development of their ugly little beast. How cute. Enter the scam artist, S.A. Williams. Leesfield's brother initially met Williams in a bar, and in chatting, shared the concept they were working on. Williams sold himself as a promoter. In truth, he was extremely good at promotion with all the right connections. At the time, Williams was flipping restaurants for profit, purchasing badly performing diners and such, overhauling them, and then selling them out for good money. This was one of his more honest enterprises. He did not tell the brothers about his prior imprisonments for fraud.
Williams was able to provide cash to get things rolling, and it looked like he was making an honest go of it at first. The engine was upgraded from a small Briggs & Stratton, think lawn tractor engine, to a 4-cylinder Hercules. The new car was named the Bobby car after Williams' son. The car had many innovative features. Auto Industries magazine commented on the most novel feature, a removable drivetrain. The concept was that if your car had a mechanical problem, you brought it into the dealer would unbolt the engine, transmission, rear end combination, and bolt in a loaner that you could use until your power unit was repaired. No need for a loaner car. You kept driving your own car. There was at least 2 cars built for promotions, and we have several photos of them. The car looked like something you would see in a Pixar film. With a design solidified and a prototype in hand, Williams went into full production mode. Still, it seems, with honest intent to produce an automobile.
All right, so to step back a moment and give some context at the time, in the 1940s, television was extremely rare, but what every house had was a radio, and radio shows was where your sports, news, music. There were the serial shows, the detective ones like Dragnet and westerns. Every house had a radio, but to see the shows, to see things, to see the news, or a movie, or even to see Saturday morning cartoons, people would go to the local movie theater. Nearly every town had their own theater, one massive screen, sometimes a stage for touring acts to use. The kids would go down with some change for the Saturday morning cartoons. Adults might take in a matinee. There were places everyone went. They had powerful names like the Majestic, the Avalon, the Senator, the Hippodrome. And these Art Deco palaces were an escape from the real world. They were also one of the few places with air conditioning.
I forgot about
That's a
that. I
good
was going to
point.
add that. Yeah, they have like the motels, and then would just have air conditioned out on the front.
Yeah, but starting in the 30s, they started having air conditioning in the movie theaters. It was
So especially down south, or if you're having a heat wave or anything, everybody's going to go escape in there.
yeah.
Especially in the 30s, because that was still one of the cheapest forms of entertainment, if I recall. That was literally like a lot of people's safe place where they could go and they could get popcorn to munch, and they'd be in the AC.
And it kept going through the 50s and the 60s. I mean, my parents
strong.
remember. Both my parents remember going down for the matinees and for the Saturday morning cartoons, which I, as a lazy child growing up in the 80s, got to sit there in my living room and watch them. I didn't have to walk down to the movie theater.
And so S.A. Williams knew this, and Williams also knew people in the major newsreel studios. So he used those contacts to have clips of the Bobby car put on the big screens all across the country. So here you have an America that's looking for something fresh after years of war and no new cars. And none were available yet. And also are excited about the prospects of an inexpensive new car. People wanted to know where to send their money to reserve a car. Car lot owners and repair shop owners, various other entrepreneurs, all wanted to know where to send money so they could secure a dealership. The big automakers did not have new cars yet, but if the small company is going to put out cars first, many folks thought they would quickly strike it rich. They saw an opportunity and wanted to get in on it.
And a lot of people had some money to play with too after the war.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. As money began to roll in, Williams consulted his lawyer, one of the few intelligent things he seems to have done. Listening to him, on the other hand, is a problem, it'll turn out. And he set up an account to hold money until the cars were ready to sell. That makes sense. That sounds like a sensible man. But the money poured in and continued to pour in. Williams could not resist temptation and quickly rolled into that go big or go home mode. I think we've all run into people like that. We're going to go big, we're going to go fancy, or we're not going to do it at all, which never, in my experience, tends to go really well. The House of Cards was now officially under construction. First, Williams purchased a factory. It belonged to the bankrupt defense contractor Solar Industries, and he purchased it for $80,000.
I think I have some stuff from Solar Industries.
What did they make?
Of course you would.
I believe they actually made blackout light bulbs.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, solar. Yeah, light. That tracks.
Yeah, and you had all these companies that just went, I mean, it was basically the landscape was littered with factories that had shut down as soon as the end of the war had come and their contracts had dried up. So he purchases that factory. The goal was to look like a factory. The outside of the building was plastered with Bobby car advertising. We're talking like massive billboards and everything. Leafield and his crew moved into offices in the building, but there was no actual machinery. But this was not enough. Williams found an even larger empty factory. It was that of Leafield's former employer, Convair. Williams leased that and moved Leafield and crew again. Leafield then set up shop in the offices of his former boss, I believe that was the offices of the factory owner. And then William gave the instructions to organize all the left-behind machinery so it looked like they were about to produce a car. So basically, to the untrained eye, take all this equipment and just move it around so it looks like we're about to do something.
That's great. They just kind of shuffled around
Yeah.
the unused aircraft manufacturing tools. They're like, oh, look, it's an assembly line for a car.
Yeah. So, and to the average person who knows nothing about tools, then, oh, cool, look, giant machinery. They're going to build something.
I feel like, I just like how it's just put as produced a car, not cars, not start producing cars, plural, just a car. It's very foreshadowing.
I think they might end up producing like 2 of the Bobby cars, maybe 2.5.
No, but they are highlighting some good writing on your part with that one.
Oh, I appreciate that.
I try.
Okay, so it looked like they were about to produce a car. Yeah, I didn't even think about how I wrote that. Next level of the House of Cards, with what looked like a factory, once again, with what looked like a factory, Williams began to sell franchises. The small print to each franchise agreement stated that the franchise purchaser, quote, earned the right to handle cars, spelled K-A-R-S because that's cool, K-O-O-L, earned the right to handle cars only if and when such cars were built. Over 800 would-be dealers bought franchises. And these were like down the road when they're trying to go more legitimate, they start to find out that a lot of these are like used car lots or some down in its select repair shop. A lot of places that they weren't really just like, I don't know if we want these people actually handling our cars. But Williams didn't care about that. He was willing to take money from anybody. With over 800 dealers, with over 800 franchises sold, there were still no Bobby cars being produced.
Before I go into the next section, I need to bring up something that is now stuck in my head, and it's relevant, sort of, kind of. Do you guys remember the Cars for Kids commercials?
No, I don't remember that.
K-A-R-S,
Yes.
Cars for Kids. K-A-R-S, Cars for Kids. 8677 Cars for Kids. Donate your car today.
What are they going to do? Like give their junker to a 5-year-old? There's going to be a ton of accidents. The
That's
kid can't
kind
even
of
read the
the
pedals.
way.
It's definitely the way
They
it
made it
sounds,
look.
but no, I know exactly the commercials
Yeah,
they're
you
talking
do.
about. Yep.
Wow.
But just the spelling of cars
And it was-
constantly being with a K.
Because
Yes.
it's cool.
Yeah. But now that commercial is stuck in my head and I haven't thought about it in years. So thanks.
Brainworm. I didn't do that. You did that to yourself.
And
Look, sometimes things just come up from the depths and I can't control
based on
it.
the statistics on Substack, most of our listeners are in Maryland, so it's going to be stuck in all their heads now too,
I'm so sorry.
because they're all going to be remembered also. So
We
yay!
need to expand our
I'm so
listenership. So, folks, if you
sorry.
could please share, for the love of God, share the posts about this so that we could get listenership outside of the Maryland, PA area. That'd be
If that
fantastic.
jingle's not stuck in your head right now, please
BGE
share this
one better
episode
be.
with a friend.
If you want to stab us and kill us because of that jingle,
I deserve it.
we're in Kentucky now. not Littlestown. We have moved. That's where we're recording from. Fort Blanket, south of the Yukon, in Kentucky. All right, go ahead, Tasha.
So I'm off the scent. We're in Versailles, Kentucky.
Finally, somebody noticed that something was rotten in San Diego. The Securities and Exchange Commission, along with the California Commissioner of Corporations, noticed the franchise game. They also noticed that Williams had served time for a fraud. Hey, it's come back to bite him. California shut Williams down. He could no longer do business within the state. While Williams worked on how to salvage his scam, Big George Keller entered the scene in February of 1946. Big George was a veteran of the auto industry. He spent 28 years at Studebaker and was their VP of sales. Big George had a stellar reputation and was known for his blunt honesty. That blunt honesty, though, pushed him over the edge at Studebaker, and he walked out after a big disagreement one day. In February of 46, Big George was spinning wheels while selling cars at his father-in-law's dealership in San Diego. For years, he harbored a desire to start his own car company. George Keller's former assistant at Studebaker said that Keller wanted to produce the ideal car for the poor man. God, we could use someone like that again today. This went against the desires of Detroit, and even George said, when you're bucking Detroit, you're bucking a stone wall. Detroit had no interest in an affordable car for the masses. The days of the Model T were gone. Leafield met Big George and brought him on as a consultant. This was a solid move towards actual car production.
Who'd have thunk?
What?
Meanwhile, while Leafield and Big George were getting to work, Williams continued to salvage his project. Again, using his contacts in media, Williams spread the word that Bobby Carr sought to relocate their factory to somewhere. They would build cars without it.
So this is very specific because it's and I'll just interject here, which is totally fine. So what he told the media was that they wanted to relocate to somewhere where they could, quote, build cars without interference, unquote. If we think back to the fact that everybody's discovered he's running a scam, essentially he's wanting to move to a state where he can run his scam, and he's just
He'll get away with it.
saying it without saying it.
Enter Alabama.
Yeah.
The Birmingham, Alabama Chamber of Commerce was dealing with now empty factories and furloughed labor. They wanted to draw business to Birmingham. Desperate to fire up the factories, Birmingham sent a representative to speak with Williams. Williams headed to Alabama shortly after the meeting. A week after Williams traveled to Alabama, Leafield received a simple telegram that read, "Put everything on a flat car." Bobby Carr was moving to Birmingham. The sloppily built house of cards began to flitter away once business was reestablished in Alabama. Alabama officials quickly discovered Williams' criminal record and shut him down. With a record like his, he was not allowed to head a corporation in the state. This was fine, as the skeleton crew actually trying to develop the Bobby Car were fed up anyways. Big George observed. There were a lot of other members of this organization besides Williams who had given freely of their time and effort for very little financial gain, and who were more responsible for the product than Williams, who was neither an engineer nor a designer. It was time for a mutiny.
Enter Hubert Mitchell, a genius entrepreneur from Hartselle, Alabama. In his childhood, Mitchell built a plane based off of photos, having never seen one in person, and it flew. Mitchell had promotional experience and connections like Williams. In the 1930s, Mitchell claimed to have found the outlaw Jesse James, who had long been declared dead, languishing in prison. Mitchell had the 90-year-old fellow released so that he could tour his show circuit. When Mitchell entered the Bobby Carr story, he owned the world's largest theatrical supply company and a furniture company that made seats for airplanes. So this guy is like all over the place.
He's diversified. We'll just call him diversified.
Yeah, quite. Like he's a bit of a showman.
Yeah, definitely. The Jesse James thing was just like a whole aside that I was just sitting there going, I'm not going down this path any further. I just really, this will be like.
That was your hair sculpture moment?
That was my hair sculpture moment where I was just like, no, we're not chasing this one any
It
further.
sounded like something P.T. Barnum would have done.
Yeah, it's very
Absolutely.
And the thing was, he did. This guy was like genius mechanic, P.T.
yeah.
Barnum, and then then an amazing businessman on top of it.
I just love that we keep coming back to some form of sideshow history throughout everything
can't be
we
helped.
do.
Oh my God!
Reoccurring themes.
Everything is the fault of carnies. It's
God.
all the carnies' fault.
Either that or people from Wisconsin.
God
No,
is
they
a
just
carny.
make the best stories. That's all.
Yeah, there we go. You're right.
They just make the best
So
stories.
so here we are. We got Mitchell has a 40,000 square foot factory, 90 employees, and $100,000 worth of airplane seats on order when the war ended and that he was stuck with. And Bobby Carr is sitting in an empty 735,000 square foot factory with 40 employees and no money.
Yeah. Yeah, they'd gotten down there and there was just, they'd managed to get to that point and were just sitting there completely broke. In Mitchell's words, it was great finding some interview stuff with Mitchell. At first, I was only interested in their car as a place to sell my surplus seats. But George showed me how easily I could buy the whole thing. These people were desperate. They didn't even have money to leave Alabama. I had to personally loan Keller money to live on. These people were innocent victims. They were car people. They were interested in staying in the industry that they'd been raised in. When Bobby Carr declared bankruptcy, I decided to help. Keller wanted to call it Mitchell Motor Corporation. Hell, I said, you're the man. We'll use your name. Dixie Motor Car was only an interim thing, and we quickly sold out to the new Keller Motors Corporation. The Bobby Carr had had some bad publicity with potential stockholders. You think? So we thought we'd better change the name. Yeah, that was probably a really smart idea. Mitchell and other investors bought out the Bobby Carr Company, and S.A. Williams headed back to California, where he belonged. Keller Motors moved forwards as a company run by honest men with actual intent to produce an affordable car. How odd. Williams was paid off. Questionable franchisees and dealers were paid off. Everything began on a new footing November 25th, 1947. Big George Keller was the president of the new company, Hubert Mitchell the VP, and the new company was Keller Car. The next step, funding and actually producing a car.
With the buyout of Bobby Carr came some of the old prototypes. The rear-engined convertibles, a front-engined woody wagon, and a couple spare chassis. These were used as displays for the initial launch of the company, even though they were not the actual Keller car. Changes to the design were made, and the new design made sense. The new design used many off-the-shelf parts, meaning parts already being made by other companies. Examples were Willys wheels and a Willys axle, a Hercules 4-cylinder engine, which was used in a variety of applications. Merlin has a World War II generator with that same engine. The new version of the actual Keller car was a wood-bodied station wagon, otherwise known as a Woody. That's cute. This was the standard up to World War II. And in the case of the Keller car, Alabama had ash forest to supply the wood, and there was Hubert's furniture factory and workers to assemble the bodies. This meant less of a need for welding and steel presses, simplifying the process through both materials and less need of skilled labor.
What followed during the period of 1947 and 1949 was a ton of fundraising and selling of franchises, but very little car production. At some point, possibly up to 18 of the Keller cars were made. These cars were driven around the country to promote dealerships and franchises. Sometimes they were repainted to look fresher, and so it looked like there were even more cars. Money from the franchise sales was being spent on further development of the car, staff, and even renting and staffing a Detroit office to stay central to the industry. Keller had many Detroit contacts who worked to support the development of the car in one way or another. To prove to the SEC that they were trying to produce cars, Leafield and Company had to jump through all sorts of hoops. Leafield explained that for a period of 2.5 years, we were on the defensive with the SEC. Playboy, Tucker, and Davis all had indictments against them. Those are the other small car companies at the time. Keller was the only company that throughout the period stayed clean. After $130,000 in attorney's fees, the SEC said, in effect, "We're awfully sorry, fellows. You're clean as a whistle."
Yeah, they'd just been battling and battling because these other companies had been basically playing the S.A. Williams games of taking in franchises and franchises and franchises. Meanwhile, Keller has gone and gotten rid of Williams and taken an honest turn, and the SEC is still completely after them. I will throw in that during this time, there was another little company called Crosley that was bopping along doing fine and actually producing cars. So it wasn't entirely a bunch of pop-ups trying to pull something together. But Crosley was started out prior to the war by a fellow named Powell Crosley, who had made his millions in radio and appliances. So unlike all these other little companies, that was a company that was basically somebody who had this dream of a small, affordable car, but had millions of dollars to get the company rolling. And so all these little guys are flailing to come into existence. He's just bopping along, producing tiny little cars, a little bit smaller than the old Volkswagen Beetles. And quite similar looking to what these guys were coming up with. Back on here. What they needed to do was finalize designs and start production. What they needed to finalize designs and start production was to sell stock. The summer of 1949 rolled on. A prospectus was drawn up with plans for the car production, reasoning for the wood design, and more. Stock went on sale in late September 1949. The sales went extremely well, and it looked like they were going to have the money to start production. The company officers were in Manhattan for the initial stock sale, and they celebrated with a festive dinner on the evening of October 4th. All was golden. On the morning of October the 5th, 1949, nobody could find Big George. When they ran to his room in the Hotel Algonquin, they found him motionless. Keller had died of a heart attack that night. They were left adrift. Hubert Mitchell said at the time, quote, "We hired a legal firm, the best one in Huntsville. We put out feelers in Detroit. We looked everywhere, but we couldn't find anyone to take over. If I had to do it over again, I'd have built the business and the advertising around the car, not around any one person. But at the time, it seemed like the thing to do." I mean, he really, really liked Keller. And the big thing with hiring the legal firm was they needed to find somebody of Keller's stature to take over the company, basically to make everything legal, all the stock that they'd sold and such. And they just couldn't find anybody to match him. Leafield, I always like what Leafield said, which is just really heartbreaking. And Leafield is the one, you got to think, this is the guy who had the original idea. He's the one who found Keller when Williams was screwing with them. Leafield summed it up simply as they shut down the company. Quote, "With Keller gone, we had no spark plug left in the engine." Unquote. They put the company into receivership, paid everyone off, and shut down. A quiet end to a hell of a roller coaster ride. So to tie things up a little bit here, first off, some might wonder what happened to S.A. Williams.
I assumed he was like ripping off old ladies in nursing homes or something.
Yeah, quite honestly,
Maybe another prison stint.
just about honestly. He after Williams was bought out, he headed back to California and tried two other small car schemes. And I forget what the names of them were, but they were both scams. Eventually, he was convicted for participating in a counterfeit money ring that was distributing, I think it was fake $20 bills or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, so really, yeah, if he was scamming little old ladies in a nursing home or stealing the pennies out of a blind man's tin cup, I wouldn't be surprised because he just...
Scum.
Yeah, he seems that sort of sleaze.
Barnacle scum.
The interesting thing is, if you look up a lot of these guys, the only person you're actually able to find any real info on, because everybody else has been lost to history, is Keller. So I'd say in the end, and Hubert Mitchell, you can find Keller and Mitchell. Williams has disappeared with the dust of time. And
Goodbye.
I think this is probably
Fine.
the most his name has been brought up in decades, honestly. Probably since the 1970s when the last big article was written. And here's a neat little one. There was one website that we will list a link to that talked about this. It said, "What happened to the remaining Keller cars? 3 of the supposed 18 produced did survive. They each have a name, and each one is back home in Huntsville, Alabama. The oldest one, Keller number 1, is named George. It's owned by brothers Lance and Vance George. The car is named for them and for Big George himself. It is housed in a dry garage under a cover and shows multiple layers of paint. Currently, it is sort of a red over yellow. Apparently, what they were doing was driving the cars around, showing them off, and then repainting them. So it looked like another car and was all shiny again, and they'd drive it around, show it off, and just keep doing this with the paint because they didn't have enough cars. Keller number 2 is named Mitchell and has spent, and I love this one's my favorite, it has spent almost its entire life with Hubert Mitchell's family. 6 months after the company... Yes?
Hi, I didn't know how else to make my wanting to ask question apparent. So, with repainting the cars, how many times can someone get away with doing something like that before it's obvious that you've got a...
Depends on how professional paint you're using. If you're using a paintbrush, it shows up pretty quick. If you're using a sprayer, I don't know, it depends on your prep. If you're doing an Earl Shives $200 quickie paint job, which is probably what they're doing, then after about 3 or 4 times, it's going to start to show.
That's what I was kind of thinking was going on.
However,
so how long can you get away with that?
However, if you're going through and sanding it down every single time, which they may have been doing, I don't know.
Well, they had the people to do that.
Yeah, so I don't know what sort of prep they were doing.
enough.
Okay, so back on Keller number 2.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mitchell has spent almost his entire life with Hubert Mitchell's family. 6 months after the company was closed, Mitchell's daughter, nicknamed Mitch, and 3 of her friends went to New York City to rescue 4 Kellers that were being stored at a hotel. Mitch drove hers through college, and the car now lives with Hubert Mitchell's grandson. I just always figure if the thought in my head was like, if this was a movie, there would just at least be this happy scene of Mitch going up to New York with her friends and picking up these cars and then just sort of driving west with them into the sunset. The last Keller, number 3, is named Barnett for 2 generations of the Barnett family that both found it and restored and have now restored it to better condition. So it's I'd say the Keller number 1, I don't know if anybody's seen it run in a long time. Keller number 2 is known to be in good condition. And Keller number 3, basically the Barnetts wanted to keep it original, but Matt, do you know the problems with what happens when you build a wood car?
Oh boy, yeah.
Yeah.
This can be quite a challenge to keep that original.
So
Is it and how do you define original? Are we talking about original like the USS Constitution?
Oh my.
in the case of this was it had never been restored when they found it, and they were like, we're going to keep this original. And then as they started taking it places, it
Termites holding hands.
wasn't really termites, but
Warping.
warping. You figure wood dries and expands. You can have dry rot. The bolts come loose. So yeah, apparently the more they moved it around, the more it was wobbly.
Yeah. And for your own homework, you can look up how many original pieces of wood are in the USS Constitution.
There'll be a quiz later. We'll send you a sticker.
It's a grandpa's hammer situation.
George Washington's axe. The handle's been replaced 5 times. The head 7 or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's George Washington's axe. So that's the story of Bobby Carr and the Keller Car Company, which I'm pretty darn sure none of you ever heard of before, unless you've heard me talk about it in person, because you got to be searching to find this one.
No, that's one I'd never heard of before you told me about this the other day.
Yeah.
And I had no idea you had original company paperwork that probably nobody has. Because why would anyone have it? Somehow it wasn't thrown out and made its way to
Where else
your
is it
friend
going to end
Sturgis
up?
and then here.
Yeah,
Seriously, where else is that stuff going to end up? Where it's going to be preserved?
The only other place, and the thing, something I'm contemplating doing with it is, if the Antique Auto Club of America does not have a set of this in their archives, I'm thinking of donating the paperwork to the AACA library, because it'll serve more purpose there in the library where it's accessible than on the shelf here, where before the show I was trying to figure out where I'd put it, where I'd buried it on the shelf. Because I obviously don't restore these because there's 3, and it's just sort of cool to look at. But I've scanned the photos and put them online, and honestly, if you search for this online now, most of the articles you find, if they have photographs of the Bobby car, I'll give credit to Hanson Mechanical.
It goes back to your blog.
Yeah, because it's one of those things that there's times over the years where I've done research and I've been so ridiculously frustrated because all I can find is articles that I've written. Like the Merlin motor, I have a motorcycle, coincidentally, that's a Merlin. I bought it thinking it was a James, another motorcycle nobody's ever heard of, and worked on it for, I think, 5 years, making parts for it, trying to fit James parts to it that wouldn't fit, and finally was talking with a guy on a Yahoo forum. This is probably 20 years ago. Yahoo!
No!
On a Yahoo.
Need any more old advertisements from the early 2000s in this episode?
I'm talking to this guy on the Yahoo forum, and he finally goes, Merlin, could you send me the serial number for that? Because I don't think you're working on what you think you're working on. I sent him the serial number, and a week later he gets back to me. He says, Merlin, by weird coincidence, you're working on a 1948 Francis Barnett Merlin 51. And he said, that's the 7th one we know of on your side of the pond. And I'm sitting there going, yay. It's rare, and I can't get crap for it. Luckily, the engine's was made by a company that made engines for a bunch of people. But even nowadays, if I go and just go, I wonder if there's anything else out there about Merlins, I just get my stuff. And I'm like, I wrote that 20 years ago.
This is what happens when you're a librarian and dabble in very specific things.
I didn't even try to get a Merlin. I bought
Merlin,
something
it
else.
happens.
Yeah, it's the weirdness that happens at the barn. So yeah.
This was pre-barn, firstly.
It's the weirdness
Merlin weirdness
of Merlin world.
It's like, I kind of reached an event horizon with the battery cases, my research on those for
Yeah.
the Willard battery cases, where I reached a point that my results I was getting from my Willard battery case search of just going back to the reproductions that I was making. I was like, nope, I know this information already. That one's mine. I need something else.
I like that use of event horizon. That's a really good way to put it.
When you start finding all of your own stuff and you're just like, oh, no, I'm just cycling on me now. Okay, no, we're done.
Like, no, I have my research. It's right here in the cupboard above the computer. I have that. I need something fresh.
Yeah, so... I mean, essentially, there's more information on the Bobby cars, but it's on the Bobby cars and Keller cars, but it really comes down to just like what stock was sold when on what day and stuff like that. And I sort of thought that could make for an hour and a half long episode. People would stop listening and possibly send us death threats. And I don't know.
On the bright side, we would get listener mail that way.
You're right. That would be listener mail, and we'd be excited to receive it. So should you dislike us enough that you want to send us a death threat, we will be excited to receive your listener mail, and we'll read it on the next episode, bleeping out all of the swears.
Most of the swears.
Okay,
Some of us
cool.
aren't afraid to swear on this podcast.
All right. You looked like you were taking notes. Was there something you want to throw in? Or?
Oh, I was just going to... I just have one closing thing, because I figure since
go for
audio
it.
guy John might clean up some of this, and you're going to miss some gems.
Yeah.
So I'm paraphrasing from a couple of points earlier in the episode of... so when you're in an ash fortress in fucking Detroit, you're fucking a stone wall.
Those were all Tasha's, weren't they?
Yeah, those are my fuck-ups.
I just thought Ash Fortress was great. And that sentence about Detroit and the stone wall,
See, Ash,
it had to be read that way Tasha wanted it.
Thank you.
See, I got from Ash Fortress Army of Darkness vibes, and was just like Ash with his chainsaw hand in the fortress. Because...
That's what I made you watch for Halloween.
Yeah, we watched, we made the mistake of watching the first one.
Shout out to Shell for that one.
What's that?
Shout out to Shell for getting us onto that franchise. Well, I can't remember.
Don't watch the first one. Just skip it.
No,
It's
but
the Evil Dead, right?
yeah, Evil Dead. We went to a convention, and I wanted to watch it because we saw a bunch of the actors like talking about it. It's like, wow, they sound like they had fun doing this. Now I have to see it.
It's entertaining.
It was.
And
I don't think I've seen the first one.
no, it's not worth it because the second one basically just reiterates the first one in 5 minutes and then just moves on. And I think the girlfriend changes in every single movie.
She changes every 2 scenes.
It's like, oh, there's a different actress. Oh, there's a different actress. Oh, there's a different actress.
Oh, this is a creepy doll.
No continuity.
That's a mannequin.
At the same time, chainsaw hand.
Chainsaw arm.
No, hand.
It's like
Ish.
his
I
forearm.
don't know. I'm not going to argue this. We're doing an episode on cars.
Now we're talking about chainsaw arms.
Yes. All right. So I think we're going to sign off for the evening because we've gone totally off the track. In fact, the train has not only gone off the track, it has taken out the train station and killed the villagers.
You promised a train wreck.
You're right. That's a good
And
time.
delivered.
We had our train wreck. All right, folks. Thank you for listening, and we're going to sign off for the morning, afternoon, evening, or whatever time of day it is where you are. This is Merlin.
Toodles.
Apparently, Tasha's name is Toodles now.
Good night from Matt.
Nicole.
Okay. Good night, folks. Take care. Thanks for listening. You're all awesome.